Okay. I'm calling the meeting to order. Everyone rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Desmond, you move the flag over to the corner? I keep turning and looking for it. I was like, oh, wait a minute.
You can see it's very confusing for us. We're like,
I keep doing it. The 3.5 years of turning into the same spot. You know?
Okay, we're gonna start with the IASC Community Awards. Chris, if you wanna come up and take the mic.
Very much.
And we got it here,
Oh, awesome. This is great.
hopefully in the order you gave it to us.
We use the
We'll
same
see
folders
when we-
for Honor Society.
Oh, is it? Yeah. Well, I want to start, first of all, by thanking you, Mr. Mayor, thanking the trustees. I want to thank those of you who will indulge me for a few moments while I speak on behalf of CAB. But mostly,
Chris,
I
I
wanna
wanna ask a
thank-
small favor?
Yep.
Either grab the mic
Oh.
or turn it around or any way you want.
Can I turn it around?
Yeah, sure.
It's so the people at home on
Yeah.
Zoom can hear it.
But most of all, I want to thank the students that you see here in the audience today. My name is Chris Raymond again. I am the co-director with Maureen DePaoli of Irvington Parks and Recs of the Irvington's Community Advisory Board. We meet each month during the school year, 8 o'clock in the morning on the first Tuesday of the month down at the Senior Center at Scenic Hudson Park. And we meet with 40 students from the high school. We meet with Dr. Ratisik and members of the school administration. We meet with Judge Lyons and other members of the community. But these students that you see here come month after month to those meetings, and they bring their energy and their enthusiasm and their ideas to help us create programming that inspires students here to live safer, healthier lives. So if any of you have been to the high school campus in October, you may have seen the red ribbons out on the columns outside of the school and in throughout the school. Those are placed there to remind students. It's a national effort to kind of remind students about drug abuse and the effects of drug abuse. We have a program that was launched by one of our students a few years ago in the fall, a dodgeball tournament that brings together about 8 or 10 teams. There are dozens of students that participate in this. And they come to compete in this dodgeball tournament. And throughout the tournament, there's messaging and information about drug and alcohol use and making those healthy lifestyles. That program was so popular, started by one of the students, so popular they came back and said, look, we want to do something else in the spring. And so they launched a volleyball tournament that has the same kind of impact. And that one is devoted to raising awareness of students with disabilities. During the Super Bowl weekend, we had one of the coalitions reach out to us, and they had stickers they wanted to put on pizza boxes in and around the Irvington community, again with information, statistics, information about living a sort of drug-free, alcohol-free life. And it was students from this group that gathered together and went up to Tony's at the top of the hill and Capri and Terrytown, spent hours kind of putting stickers on hundreds and hundreds of boxes that went out on Super Bowl Sunday. And then there's like one of my favorite programs of all that we do, and that is in the springtime, we send students from the high school, students just like these, from the high school down into the middle school health classes, where we have 8th graders who are like quietly wondering and anxious about that giant transition from middle school to the high school. So they are concerned about the peer pressure that they're going to encounter there and the academics and how stressful that is. They worry about, the drug and alcohol use and what that's like and how to kind of navigate that world in high school. And so we provide them each with index cards that they can write anonymously, questions that they have for these students. And 3 students from CAB from the high school go into each of those classes and they field those questions and they answer them eye to eye with their peers. And they tell them what high school is really like and how they navigate those situations, and to make the world a lot easier for those students that then have to go through and make that transition. So what you see here before you today are members of the junior class. They've been coming month after month to these meetings since eighth grade, some of them since ninth grade. They've been bringing that energy, they've been bringing those enthusiasm, and the work that we do could not be successful if the programs that we launch in those meetings at the senior center are not carried up and sold to the students inside the high school. And so these students you see here today are the ones that take those ideas. They help us generate those ideas, and then they help us sell those ideas by bringing them back into the high school and showing their peers what can do, and by modeling what it means to be a community leader. So you wake up in the morning now, you kind of look at the news, and it's very difficult at times. I find myself wondering, like, what's happened to the leadership in this country at times. But I never despair, and that's because I see these kids month after month. And I can tell you, from my heart, from the bottom of my heart, that the next generation of leaders, it's this generation of leaders right now that are here in this room. And I see how smart they are, I see how thoughtful they are, and I see the energy that they're willing to devote to not just making the high school campus and the classrooms in our community better, but the entire community at large. So I will take a moment to thank all of you and just say, and then I'm going to call each of them up to actually
Sure.
receive
Let me just
certificate.
say
Yep.
one or two things. One, I think on behalf of the board, we are proud of all of you, and you'll be getting this certificate tonight, but I have every expectation that going forward, even in moments when you're not getting a certificate, you will continue to sort of live out the behavior that you've modeled already as leaders. And I guess the last observation I'll make is I'm shocked to see that some of you have reached an age where at least one of you lives on my block and the others I saw the birth announcements. So at the moment, I'm feeling a little bit old, but we're proud of you. Thank you.
I think that's a great point too. We have one more year with these students here, right? So their juniors are going into the senior year, but I can tell you they've modeled such great leadership behavior that we have a class right behind them and a class behind that that's kind of ready to step in. So thank you all. So without further ado, I'll invite Kylie Canton up. Thank you again. Ryan, I don't see Ryan Sherry. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Ryan. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. This one won't open. Soren DeYonker? Nope, okay.
Oh, are they out of order? You can.
This next one is for Nick Grados. Nick could not be here tonight. He actually thanks everyone for the award, but he is actually representing Irvington on the lacrosse field tonight. So we're going to see. It's crazy. Elena Hersig. Thank you very much. Daisy Hodges. Nia Kilbury. All right. Hayden Kwan cannot be here tonight as well. He's taking the opportunity to model his behavior by studying for AP. Cormac Lyons. Declan Lyons. And Kevin Lyons. Massachusetts has the Kennedy family, Texas has the Bush family. Lyons. This next one I know is for Nady Minkoff. Here as well. Right. And Laurel Neubauer. Thank you. Can we get a quick photo? Do you want to join us for the photo? And then I'll leave you. Yeah. You guys all want to come up to receive the award? Yeah, that would be great. You guys want to come up here? And
Hold our position for everybody who wants to photo.
I don't want to.
I don't know. We're like this. You guys gotta squeeze. You gotta squeeze in a little.
Thank you for indulging us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is lovely.
Sweet. Thank you.
Yes. Vote for the budget. Oh, yes, on the budget.
Here.
There's a reason.
Bye, you guys. See you guys. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we have to go up to T still. Sorry. Oh,
Bye, guys. Appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Police award.
Okay, next up is our overview of the proposed school budget by Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Mara Rutesek.
I know. Great reward.
So usually the room clears out. when
Yeah,
children
that's right. Don't take it personally.
It's okay.
And if you can turn the mic, you can do anything you want.
You want to face us?
Yeah,
This way?
yeah.
Okay. And do you have our slides or? Okay.
You want to sit down to do this?
Carol, what do you prefer, sitting or standing?
Oh, it doesn't matter. It's good to stand.
Yeah, we've sat all day. So good evening. My name is Mara Rutesek. I am the new superintendent of schools. I started July 1st. It's been a wonderful year. I've so much enjoyed learning a lot more about Irvington and joining this wonderful community. So Carol Stein is the assistant superintendent of business. And we're here tonight to review our proposed budget as well as a capital reserve project that will be voted on by the community on May 20th. So when we create the budget, we're really looking at several factors. We're first and foremost, the students are at the center of this conversation. How can we most use our resources to benefit their academic progress as well as their social and emotional? Along with that, we think about the facilities, that it's up to date and safe. We want to have consistent, high quality professional development for our faculty, as well as fair contracts. And all of this we have to do within tax cap guidelines. So there is an element of balance to it that we follow through the process, but we do our best to really use the resources to the best of our ability to support the students. And these are our strategic objectives that go along with our strategic plan. So tonight we're going to speak mostly about the stewardship of resources, but we look at that through the lens of student success, learning environment, and community engagement. And there are a number of items in here that we do believe will engage the community beyond just the students that we serve. So that's exciting. And this is our process. You can see that it begins in December. It lasts about 6 months. And we are getting there tomorrow night. And then the vote of the community will be on May 20th. And this is really a a feedback-oriented process. So when we begin, the board has the responsibility of asking us questions, so we are being fiscally prudent, making sure that have a budget that is sustainable. And at each of the meetings, they give us feedback and we revise the presentation and the budget according to that feedback.
Okay, so some numbers here. Our current budget is a little over $76 million. One of the things the exercises we do when we prepare the budget is we look at what would it cost us to just do everything exactly the same in the next year without making any changes. And that's not really realistic, but we call that the push ahead budget. But the push ahead budget doesn't just all increases. If you've been listening to any of our presentations, and all of them, by the way, are on our website from the very beginning, there's decreases, there's increases. There's, obviously health insurance went up, salaries go up, but then there's things we're not doing anymore, or we've looked at, or we repositioned our resources. So it is a combination of ups and downs. But then that number, if we are really going to continue our programs, is approximately $3 million. And then we look at building that we have a revenue budget, which I'll get into in a minute, but the revenue budget basically dictates our ceiling. So there is no chance to go above that. And so then we look to see what could we fit in. And we get lots of things from our administrators as to what I call it their wish list and their needs list. Mostly, actually, we really don't have a lot of wish lists anymore. It's more of a needs list. We're going to go over a couple of those, but not all of them will make it into our budget. And that's the collaborative process that we talk about that Dr. Vertesi just talked about. So we'll add in a little under $500,000 for that, and we end up with a $79.5 million budget. This is a 4.5%, almost 6% increase. A lot of that's been driven this year with salaries, inflation, and benefits. Benefits are keep rising for us, and I'm sure that's similar in your budget as well. So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about the next, the new considerations.
That's one question, since as you just observed, I think you've got about 73% salary and benefits. Presumably those are governed by union agreements, most of them. So you don't have much flexibility there. So if there is flexibility, it's in everything else.
Right. So, again, our contracts
Yes,
are
that is a lot like
dictated.
that.
When we make our contracts, we're being mindful that you have to sustain them 3, 4, 5 years out. So that's the trick of that. So, yeah.
Mhm.
So these are some of the new considerations that are part of this year's budget. We have been piloting new ELA curriculums across Dow's Lane and Main Street School that is in line with the science of reading. They are both really well received by our faculty, and the students are enjoying these new curriculums. So we are going to review the results of the pilot and adopt a curriculum which will be implemented in the fall. Usually whenever you purchase curriculum, it's a one-time heavy expense because you're buying all the materials and maybe any PD related to that. So that number won't consistently be that high, but for the implementation, that is the number. Decodables are related to literacy. They are, books that you can't read unless you're learning phonics. And so they assess our students' understanding of phonics-based skills. We did talk a lot about, our students in the middle and high school, and we were able to find some money to offer a dean position. The dean will really work with students across the 6 through 12 experience. We don't currently have anyone who oversees students across that critical time of middle and high school. And their role will largely be, student engagement, but also with that, some discipline-based matters, attendance, following up with students who are struggling in different ways, and really acting as a mentor, coach, all around, student advocate. So we're really excited about the possibility of that position. And it should bring a lot of services direct to students. In-house behaviorist. A behaviorist is a person who often observes students exhibiting challenging behavior. They look for the antecedents to that behavior, and then they try to work with the teacher to create a plan to avoid negative behaviors. And sometimes they work with parents as well. We did have consultants doing this, and it just made more sense for us to bring the position in-house, both financially and We just felt that someone in this role, knowing our children very well, would make their particular position all the more meaningful to students and teachers. You may be aware that Main Street School is the only school without an assistant principal in the district. And we had a position called Director of Special Projects. We were able to collapse some of those duties into other people's responsibilities. And we're pleased to offer an assistant principal over at Main Street School. And I don't think anyone is more pleased than Joyce Chapnick. But that's, that brings consistency with the other buildings in the district. And again, this was done, as Carol mentioned, through kind of reallocating resources. So it's actually not an additional cost. Assistant coaches, John Bonamano advocated for adding assistant coaches to most of the varsity teams. This just allows for better supervision of students and better coaching. We're adding a skiing and gymnastics team. The Civic Seal is part of a program in New York State where students were doing a seal of biliteracy, where students sort of stand and deliver on what they've been learning in world languages. This is a similar activity for students in social studies to demonstrate their understanding of civics. Can't be more important. And so this is a stipend for the teacher to coordinate those presentations and programs. We have a high school science class trip. We are stipending position for a nurse team leader. So this would be the nurse. If there's a sub, he or she informs the sub of medication protocols. And then if any information is coming out, updated health information, they can lead the rest of the nurses in learning about that. High school laptops for teachers is another new consideration. We are piloting this with some of the classrooms. Currently, our high school teachers have Chromebooks. Chromebooks are wonderful. They're easily movable and, they're not heavy, but much of the software and the kind of programming that high school teachers would have to use can't really be run well on a Chromebook. So Dr. Blair, our new director of technology, is piloting this in the high school to see if we can get some better software in front of the kids by giving the teachers upgraded machines. HVAC, always adding to that in terms of the controls. But that's the list of things that are new. And I think what you can see is a lot of these things will have direct impact to kids.
So back to some numbers. So we'll just talk a little bit about our revenue. And of course, the tax levy cap is the predominant revenue that we have to work with. And everybody looks at that as a 2% cap, but it really isn't a 2% cap. There's formulas that go in with it. We are fortunate that we've had some good assessment growth in Irvington, and that gives us a positive growth factor. It's basically an increase in ratables in the area. Because usually when there's an increase in ratables, there's also an increase in other costs for us. And we also look at our exemptions, which are, they kind of go in and out, but those are projects that we've already voted on as a community. So capital exclusions. And that also includes our building aid. So it's actually subtracted. So all in all, we're actually at a fairly healthy tax levy increase this year of 3.93, which leaves us with $2.5 million. But you can see also already that our pushed ahead number was 3 million. So the tax levy alone does not help, does not give us everything we need. So we'll go to the next slide. We're getting some of our positive numbers. So we are getting more state aid again this year. State aid is driven by foundation aid, which has now mostly fully funded. I'm not going to say 100% because they've made some changes to the formula beneath the scenes, as only Albany can do. I call it Albany Math. There's one presentation where I talked about how the Albany Math really worked. It was interesting. And so that's one area where we've seen some growth in. About 4 or 5 years ago, that was about $4 million. So that's really helped us. Tuition, we take in students from other schools that place a student with us for a special ed program. And we actually have a couple parents who do that on a tuition basis. Sales taxes is a portion, anything in Westchester County, we get a portion of that. So whenever you are buying locally, we do get some of that back. And that number has been fairly steady lately. We rent some property. We rent one of our spaces to the BOCES. We've had some real success with interest income. on the past couple of years, and then we have a lot of other miscellaneous revenue. So that's where we get our revenue numbers. But again, obviously, if you look at the next slide, you can see that most of it is still from the levy in this area. So that's where we're at. So then if you look at the next slide, we're going to talk about the expenditures now. So we look at, that's fine. We look at expenditures in two different ways. One is by function area, and this is how the state makes us do this. And on some of their budget newsletters that you're going to get, you're going to see this laid out that way. So general support is really the district office, the Board of Ed, the technology infrastructure, legal, things like that. Operations and maintenance is our facilities. And then the bulk of the budget is in instruction, special education, and instructional support. So that's where most of the dollars are. But you'll also see that there's a lot of dollars in employee benefits because there's a lot of people in instruction, special ed, and instructional support. So instructional support, some people ask what's that? That's guidance, clubs, athletics, library, instructional technology, and then our psychologists and social workers. So that's where all that lies. Transportation is one area we've probably seen the most increase in, and it's getting very expensive, and we have to bus people within 50 miles for special ed and 15 miles for private. We're seeing quite a bit of that. So it's just a cost we have, and we don't really get a choice on that. So we do our best to manage it by being in a quad, or actually now it's 5 schools together, so we can manage as much as the cost as possible. All right, so then when you look at the next slide, we look at it just slightly differently, and here it's by what are we spending it on, and as the mayor just mentioned, 73% of our costs are people, which is employees, salaries and benefits, and that makes sense because we're in the people business of teaching kids and being with kids and cleaning up after kids and aiding kids and administering kids. So that's really all of the biggest expense of what we do. And the other categories are pretty similar to the other slide. But people really want to know, what does it mean to me? So the next slide tells us that. And this is where, oh, that's just a pictorial graph, sorry. The next slide shows, okay, so what does it mean to us in terms of our tax rate? And fortunately, because our assessments have been increasing, our actual tax rate, what you pay per thousand, is going down for the 3rd year in a row, or actually 4th year in a row. And so that's good news. It may or may not be good news for you. It depends on your individual assessment, but take your individual assessment, and the next slide tells you what to do there. You divide that by 1,000. Next slide. And then you multiply that by the estimated rate of 19.15, and that will give you your estimated taxes. And then you can compare that to your previous year. Again, I don't have the final number until the final roll comes out in August, because we pay the taxes here in September and in February.
Can I ask a question there? So because your tax base is different than the village, right? Because it's a bigger area. Do you know if the increase in assessments is just homeowner, or is there some commercial property? Because that would be a benefit.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because the assessor doesn't always want to give us that information, but there is some commercial increases. And that's where I'm not 100% sure of where all the increases are coming. But I'm going to say that it's probably somewhat on the commercial side because of that growth factor. But usually when that growth factor is up a little bit, there's some more commercial property, or there's more property, period.
And do you know what the percentage is? Because I think we knew what our percentage was, right? And then the differential still meant that overall there wasn't a decrease in tax. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, for the increase in the assessments?
Yes.
I mean, we knew what our number was. I don't know if you have a breakout of what the increased assessments are just based upon their value, or what's new construction.
So that's what I'm saying. I don't have that number, but because the growth factor is a little bit higher than normal, I'm going to say some of it's new. Quite a bit. It has to be, because otherwise that growth factor would probably be very low. So, because they're looking at new development when they figure that growth factor out. It's kind of a complicated formula that they do in Albany, and I don't totally understand it. And they don't know. I don't think they don't totally understand it. All right, so the next slide talks a little about what happens if we have a contingency budget. This is when the voters vote no on the budget. The board would have a chance to put it up again in June. And then we would, if the voters would turn it down a second time, we would have to go to a contingent budget, which allows us to levy no more than the previous year. And in our case, you saw that that levy increase was 2.56 million, so we would be cutting that 2.6 million from our budget. And again, I mentioned that our push ahead was 3 million over. So not only are we not doing any of our new considerations, we're really not doing a lot of things. So we would have to find cuts in classrooms and in facilities and in community use of our buildings and just about a lot of things. You know, so that would be a tough problem for us. The board would then have to get together and figure out where those cuts would be. We would make recommendations, but it would be a very unpleasant evening. But for the most part, the community has supported our budget and believe that we are fairly good stewards over their resources. So hopefully this will not be a situation that would happen again.
So again, these are just some of our, the proposals that we have discussed. We really try to align them with our strategic goals and the portrait of a graduate. There is ongoing professional development that will happen through the results of our budget. When we think about expanding special education services, the behaviorist is one of those items. We've also really worked hard at evaluating, the continuum of special education services we offer. Related to that, we were able to offer a resource room at Main Street School, which is a new service, through the process of looking at what we currently have and how to use it most efficiently. We're going to talk a little bit more about facilities as we get into the capital reserve project. But all in all, we are trying to meet the needs of our students and our community through the use of resources in a responsible way.
So normally the presentation ends now, but we do have a little bit more to go. This year we're doing another proposition. So
This bonus material.
yeah,
This
this
is
is the bonus
bonus.
time. So I'll just start it and then we'll go into a little more detail. So we have a capital reserve. This is one of our several of our reserves that we maintain. And we use reserves, I'm sure like you do, to make sure that we're not affecting the budget on an annual basis with big swings and to support things that just can't be sustained in a budget. These are all projects that will cost over $100,000, so you can never put them in your regular general fund budget. And so this is the list of the items. We're basically replacing the turf in the field that now is almost 10 years old and that we knew we had to do. And that's why we established this reserve. And then we'll be resurfacing the track. We'll be adding field lights and Dr. Tessick will go through this a little bit more with pictures in a minute. We'll be repaving some of the areas that we did not get to in our last capital project. They just didn't make it in for lack of funds. And we're going to be removing some casework and some outdated classrooms. We'll show you some pictures and then some concrete work, a student bathroom and some window replacements. And as this slide says, all of our budget presentations and all of our capital presentations with all of the detail in terms of if you like numbers, they're all there, are on our website. So then I'll let you go into all the detail.
Yeah.
So the next slide, Larry, just. So people ask, what is a capital reserve? And I kind of just started to talk about that. It's basically money we have set aside whenever the budget year ends with a surplus, which it often will, to some degree. There's always should be positive events that happen. We will put some money aside in our various reserves to pay off tax surcharge refunds, to pay off retirement commitments. And we've been doing this, putting some money in every year to put in the capital reserve. Our voters approved this reserve back in 2015. And then in 2023, we increased the amount that we could put aside. So this is money that only can be used for capital and can't be used for anything else. And in the next slide, we talk about, when we first put the track and the field and the turf field, we knew that over time it degrades. We are seeing repairs right now that we're making on the track. We just did one to, fix where it lifted up, and you can't run on that. So they were going to have to forego the Rasmuth relays and other major events and the team meets. So we had to fix that. And we know that's just going to keep happening. So that is something we are doing. And the turf, the same thing. We're having people come in and they have to sew spots together now. So we're getting to that point where it's going to become unsafe. So that's why we knew we set this reserve up. And the only way that money in a capital reserve can be accessed is if the voters approve it. Voters put it in there, and now the voters are taking it out. So But the other question that gets asked all the time is, will it increase taxes? And the answer is no, because this is money that's already been set aside and spent in that savings and reserve. So that's the beauty of this. In fact, it's been getting interest on it all this time. Final question, that these are like the four most popular Q&As and a lot more, but the four most popular is, when will this work happen? And it really wouldn't be until next summer. We have to go through a lengthy process with getting designs drawn and then send them up to SED who gives our approvals. And then we have to bid the work out. And so that usually takes quite a bit. And you can't do a lot of this work during the school year, and you only have 2 months in the summer. So, okay, next slide.
So this is some of the, you can see here the Dow's Lane basketball court. It's actually a lovely space. And we were walking out there initially. We might even be able, depending on the design, to do a basketball court and maybe 1 or 2 pickleball courts. Like it's enough space out there. And as you can see from their other play areas, these are areas students access, and they are cracked and in disrepair and not usable to the broader community. So this is why that made the list. This is the girls' restroom at the high school. Obviously, it's not a lovely site and can use an upgrade. And then we did put in for pulling out of some of this cabinetry. I think over the next few years, we really like to update the high school classrooms in general, and ripping this out sort of takes up real estate and it's not really usable will help us begin that process of just allowing us to have some more square footage. So we're going to hopefully rip all that out. That's the middle school basketball court. I think you can see on the left a little bit better about the cracks that are available, are currently at that basketball court. And then we do have some windows that were designed, with some issues. So those windows open out, and we have had students and faculty actually just kind of walk right into them. So we're going to try to replace those that open outward in the direct walkways. So I want to talk about the lights a little bit, because as we mentioned, there are a lot of projects involved in the capital reserve, but the lights get a lot of attention. And one of the reasons that the lights have made the list is we're redoing the track and the field. And so you have to do that together. You're not going to go ahead and dig up what you've just done in order to do this at the time. And we've done I've learned more about lights than I thought I ever would. But the technology is very advanced right now. So 10 years ago, when Irvington decided not to do lights, the technology wasn't very advanced. Now it is. So you're talking about 4 80-foot poles that shine straight down onto the field and do very little in terms of light spillage to the surrounding neighborhoods. And we understand the people who live near the school have different concerns. We had a dinner with them where we, early on in the process, where we tried to speak to them about it. They've been, coming to board meetings and giving us feedback, and we have attempted to update our FAQs based on their feedback, because we do believe that we can do this now for our student athletes and be good neighbors to those that immediately surround the track and field. But this is an important statistic, because 87% of school districts who are in Section 1, which is our athletic section, have or will have them. And so that is not the exception, that is the rule. And so in order for our kids to remain competitive and be having the same experience that other students are having, we feel that lights, would be a good addition to the field. This is a picture. This is an actual field in Westchester. I forget the name of it, but as you can see here, these are the poles, 4 of them. They shine straight down. And if you look into the neighboring community, very little spillage. There is something called dark sky compliance, so you could get different levels of lights. We have budgeted for dark sky compliant as part of our commitment to the surrounding neighborhoods. And I will just add on a personal note, we hear a lot about students' mental health and taking care of kids, in terms of their experience. And, growing up in Western Pennsylvania, this is what I did Friday night, right? And the whole community came out too. So our hope is that if this passes, we can have these games underneath there, and not only for our kids, but for the whole community to come out and enjoy watching some high school athletics, good, clean fun.
And not just football, with
No.
other sports as well.
Yeah.
We intend to use this for multi.
Yeah.
Well, it presumably makes sense if you're going to spend the money on the field and the track to be able to use it more than you can now.
Yeah.
Right, but
I-
just
I
not,
get the objections, potential objections of the neighbors, but you're trying to address those.
not so many that we're going to annoy everyone, and also it's
Yeah.
expensive to
No, I
run them.
understand.
It's expensive to run
I'm not
them,
doing your
so
scheduling, so I was just
Right.
making an observation.
hopefully we'll get the right balance with that.
Yeah. And, right now, only our football team has the opportunity to do that because we rent them. But this would allow girls and boys athletic teams throughout the year to get that chance 2 to 3 times per season. And this is it. This is tomorrow night. We have the official budget hearing, and the community will vote on May 20th. Just to be clear, it is 2 separate votes. So the community will vote on the budget to approve the budget and to approve the use of the capital reserve. So you could go either way on any of those 2 items.
It's probably something we do as a standard matter. I'm looking at you only because it's something you would do. But put out a notice to remind people of the vote. We do that for the school.
We can if you'd like us to.
Yeah, I mean, that was a question,
Yeah.
and I wanted to make sure I could actually do it if you want it.
You allow us to put out signs. We put some signs in, the community, and we will send out mass communications. Obviously, we're not allowed to advocate how you vote, but we are allowed to.
Understood.
We are allowed to
That you vote.
publicize
And
our
normal
votes. So
Yeah.
And
so
if you're
any helpful if you just remind people.
And there is a very good capital reserve FAQ on the website that we have updated continually throughout this process. It does put some parameters on the lights while keeping it flexible enough that we can use it. We have been asked about renting it. Our intention is really to use it for our students in our community. And given that 87% of the other schools have it, it's not really that much of a rarity. But, we have tried to be responsive in that document to feedback we have heard all along. And if you're interested, it's a pretty comprehensive document.
Well, I wish you luck at your hearing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
We can
thank you.
sympathize.
Presentation.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Okay. Announcements.
Not announcements yet.
Memorial Day ceremonies will be Monday, May 26th, 2025 at 10 a.m. at the Main Street Memorials. The Facilities Planning Committee will be meeting Saturday, May 10th at 4 p.m. in the Town Hall Trustee Meeting Room right here. And I do encourage people to go to that because it will give you an understanding of the process that we have been going through. And it's still in its early stages, but quite a bit has been done. And the Bulldog Art and Food Festival will be Sunday, June 8th from 1 to 4 p.m. on Main Street. And I'm looking forward to that. You may have more details later or, okay, sounds good. Correspondence. So the first item, scroll through here. Okay, the first item is John Price's letter, which we actually reviewed in detail last time regarding, it was really a comparison of Dobbs Ferry and Irvington police expenditures done for, I think, illustrative purposes. And since then, at least one trustee has, actually, you probably distributed to everybody, but we have received an old study regarding the police departments just to get us familiar with some of the issues involved. And again, this is not singling out the police department, it was just a way in future budgets to look at how we might save some money and what is possible. So we'll look at that as we go. Second was a letter from Ann Atchison and,
Here, I'll speak to it.
okay. You don't want to hear me say that I thought it was a wonderful letter, and thank you very much for the research. Go ahead.
I just want to make sure, sometimes they try to read the letter and it's too long to read, so.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say why I wrote the letter. And I think the reason is those kids who were sitting right there earlier in the day, because I've lived in Irvington since 1998, and I love this town, and I've spent some of my emotional energy caring about things in this town. And one of the things that I think is so valuable about Irvington is, and the reason I actually got interested in buying a house here was because in 1997, there was an article in the New York Times. They used to have a section called Living In, and they would talk about different towns. And it called Irvington the town that blends. And what they meant by that was workers, maids, people like me, landscape designers, rich people, moguls, Eileen Fisher, you know, you can go through the whole list. And we live together, and in my case, I live one garbage can width away from one neighbor and 6 feet away from the other neighbor. And I wouldn't trade it for anything, because you can get help, you can get anything you want, just walk there and there it is. So we need to support the idea that this town is diverse, because if we're not the town that blends, then we get devolved into something like the poster child for exclusionary zoning, or whatever the highest property taxes in all of Westchester County. And maybe those things are partially true, but it's not the only thing. So I just wanted to tell everybody that when you look at these heritage months, the word to think about is heritage. Heritage means history, and it means learning. So these months are meant to be learning about different things in the history of America. And obviously not every person and every kid learns exactly everything the same. And, you know, I also grew up in Western Pennsylvania, and I'm sure that what we focused on in history and so forth, even though that was, you know, at the age of the dinosaurs now, is different than maybe what people in New York City learn. I don't know. But I do know that diversity is not a zero-sum game. You can recognize someone without de-recognizing someone else. And so let's keep on not trying to not dehumanize the people that we live around and that we live with. And, you know, if people who are enthusiastic about Jewish American Heritage Month want to have events and put up signs and fly flags and whatever they want to do, then they're welcome to. But I think that's what the point I was trying to make was that Pride Month is different, or whatever you want to call it. It's gone by a few different names, in that it was meant to be a Heritage Month. And no Republican president has ever proclaimed it as such. New York State has. So we live in New York State, and I think we should be proud of proclaiming Pride Month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to reiterate, we have no plans to change what we're doing with regard to the pride flags. And I do, I've said this in past meetings, but inspired by the last sentence in your letter, you were encouraging a particular group of residents and the river towns to share their heritage and publicize widely and mildly whatever activities are planned. I would encourage people to come to the board or to the village administrator if they have a particular heritage month or event they want to celebrate. I'm not, I have said this before, so I'll repeat it. I'm not a huge fan of buying flags for every single event, but we have a clock tower with lights on, and I would be more than happy to make announcements and light that clock tower to reflect whatever it is that people want to celebrate. So thank you very much.
There are no flags for anything else. There's
I get that. But there have been suggestions for that. So
a symbol right now.
understood.
Once there is Pride Month, there won't need to be a pride flag.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next letter is from Robert Sable. And he makes 2 points. That the village, each village has the option to tax multifamily HOA developments at a retail rather than a wholesale rate. We don't know with certainty. I have no reason to doubt him, but we are going to let our village attorney take a look at the validity of that position and whether it is something we pursue.
Actually, I have. And in fact, the law, that you can tax condos and co-ops the same as single family houses is for new developments.
Okay.
Is a law, was actually passed at the suggestion requested the town of Greenberg. Greenberg was the one that wanted to do it. It's in force, and that is how, and Greenberg, which does our tax assessments, is doing that. I think, we do have a new condo development. It's not rented out yet, but,
Does that mean
And-
we are automatically getting that because Greenberg is doing?
Yes.
Oh, all right.
so
Well,
the
then the
village
sh-
doesn't need to take any steps.
Short
It's
answer
already
is
the law.
we're
So
in
the
it
answer is
already.
yes. But
Okay.
again, it's new development.
Got it. Gotcha. And then the second point was the bond initiative regarding new municipal facilities failed. Is there any other way we can update those facilities? Yes, and that was in the announcements earlier about the Facilities Planning Committee. I encouraged Dr. Sable to attend the Facilities Planning Committee meeting on Saturday, May 10th at 4 p.m. in this very room, because we have engaged in a rather involved process of planning for all future village buildings. We like to sort of lay out a pathway for that. So I appreciate his pointing that out, but we are and have been working on it for some time. So, all right, public comment. Anybody want to say anything? Nope. Okay. And anybody online? Oh, sorry, Rick. Go ahead.
Looking forward to this. I find myself with no choice. I'm sure you're expecting me to address the email from Kay O'Keefe. I will not. I find it rich that she would bring up bullying since it is she who bullied her way into the seat on the committee. Little help from her friend. I believe she called her dear friend when she first got on the committee and described her route to her position. Enough about her. I'd like to address how the village treats its volunteers. There could be many ways to show its volunteers how thankful the village is for their efforts. One thing in particular could be recognition via the Adele Warnock Award for good citizenship and for active community partnership, aka volunteerism. This award, since its inception in 1999, has only been given out 10 times, and not since 2012. What message has this sent? Our volunteers should be revered, not reviled. I have begun to see the forest through the trees. Frankly, I don't like what I see. That having been said, I would like to formally resign, effective immediately, my position on RPAC, both as a member and as the chair. Associated with RPAC, I hereby formally resign from the Irvington Woods Committee, the FACE Committee, now called the Oktoberfest Committee. I've been on both the Irvington Woods and FACE Committee since their inception. I will also resign effective immediately as the chair of and member of the Architecture Review Board that I have served on since 2013. I have been the chair for at least 10 years, 10 of those years. In association with the ARB, I also resign, effective immediately, from the Land Use Streaming Committee. I will put this all in writing to the mayor and village administrator tomorrow. In conclusion, I would just like to say, be careful what you ask for. You just might get it.
Only thing I would say to that, Rick, is I'm sorry you did that, because
I am too.
nobody has said anything, maybe not that I know of, nobody has said anything to you yet, nor were we expecting you to actually respond to that email. That is, as far as I'm concerned, that's our job to figure out how to respond to it. So I might ask you to reconsider and perhaps wait to see what our response might have been, if any. I get that you probably felt the tone of that email put you in a difficult position. But we purposely didn't respond to it. You'll notice there's been silence because we wanted the opportunity to talk about it and figure out what does it mean, if anything. I do recognize there's two sides to every story, and you didn't get to tell yours. So I might just counsel patience before you submit the letter that you described and wait to see what has to be said. That's the only thing I would ask, because I definitely appreciate the service you've put in and the service that many other people have put in. And I think the Adele Warnock Award is a good idea. I remember when I first started, it was much more common to put that out. And that's only one way that volunteers ought to be appreciated. I think there are many others. I mean, I've tried, at least in mayor's letters, to thank people for what they do, because I know how hard it is. So I can't make you do what I just asked, but I hope you will think about it.
I'll put off putting it in writing until I hear back from you.
Okay.
I just want to say something,
Yeah.
Rick, because I don't appreciate what you directed my way. Kay is her own person, and you all had an interaction that had nothing to do with me. So that has zero to do with me. That has to do with your interaction.
That was
Okay.
only one interaction.
And I haven't been there for any of your interactions, so I don't know how somehow that's related to me. I think the second thing, which you should say, John, is that Kay did not muscle her way into anything, that she went through the regular process of appointment that was established at that time.
That's not true either, because the regular process of
It's 100% true, Rick. That was the.
regular
was
process
the
for someone to
process?
get on the RPAC is for RPAC to make the recommendation and for the board to either approve it or disapprove.
I completely disagree with you, because at that point, that was completely what you publicly said, right? About how we were doing all committee appointments. That's 100% the
still in-
case.
it's
So
still
it's
not-
not.
Not
You
the
may
same as what has
disagree.
happened in the past, that's
You
all I'm
may-
saying.
but that was changed, right? We had some bumpy issues with appointments, and we made a process which we stuck to, and we stuck to since that time.
I think what we said as a board was we would publicly announce when there were openings on various committees, and that we would wait a period of time at once we got a critical mass of a number of people. And in her case, we waited well beyond the normal period timeframe. And I recognize there was some discussion about whether or not to appoint Kay, only because the RPAC had made known at a point in time that they were also trying to get parents on the board, and DEI had made known that they wanted to have certain people on the board. So it made it a little more complicated, but you did have an opening for an extended period of time, and I think that's how that ended up getting appointed. If in truth that all prior appointments had been done by RPAC recommending it, I'm being honest with you, I was not aware that that was the process. I was aware, at least the way I treated it was, if somebody gave me a name, I would say to you, go talk to them, and tell me what you think and what's happening. And I won't say it's lost in the mist of time exactly what happened with Kay, but I don't
It
want to.
took much longer to get the other 7 names.
Yeah. Okay, that's true. That is true. There were, so,
But just to be clear, we had talked about this process publicly over many months.
That's
So
true.
maybe it was unclear to you, but I think we had many conversations about this publicly, about appointments in general. So I don't think that the rules for RPAC should have been special or different. So maybe because we agreed to the rules as a board, that's the rules that were sort of applied. And I do think that Kay's appointment waited way past the 2 months that we said originally. It was 60, it went way past 60
that
days.
is true.
So there was nothing, in fact, hers was outside of what we had established as a process, because we wanted to have a process for volunteers. So we did feel that there shouldn't be special processes for different committees. So I'm just gonna disagree with what you said about how the process was. You may have thought it should have been a different process, but I think this board made it super clear that we establish that process. We discussed it over a few times publicly and over email a lot. So it was absolutely intentional and unanimous. I don't think we disagreed on the process.
So let me leave it at this. I stand by what I asked of you before. And after the board has spoken, we'll come back to you and we'll also come back to Kay. Because on the assumption that you're both staying on our pack, we want you to be able to work together. And you can't, we shouldn't have to be a referee of everybody's behavior would be, I guess, the fair point, because that's first, it's miserable for the people who are on the committee, and you shouldn't have to go through that. And it's difficult for us because it's you get a story from one side and a story from the other side, and we're not a court, we're not judges. So.
I just get back to my line in this where it says, I see the forest through the trees. And I'm not crazy about what I say.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, consent agenda. I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Award of contract for joint village paving, and this was done through the VOC. I think it's the last time that Irvington is running the process. Is according to Larry.
Somehow.
Larry's told them that repeatedly. So let me, unless there are questions, I will read the resolution. My motion is whereas the Village of Irvington, in a cooperative relationship with the Village of Ardsley, Elmsford, Hastings, Sleepy Hollow, and Tarrytown, has solicited bids for the milling and resurfacing of various streets in the Village of Irvington and partner municipalities referenced above. And whereas a public notice for this project could be advertised on April 2, 2025, and whereas at 11 a.m. on April 16, 2025, at Irvington Village Hall, all bids received were open as summarized below. And I'm not going to read every single bid, but the bottom line is whereas the village administrator reviewed the bids submitted and determined the lowest bidder is in order and responsive to the specifications, the lowest bidder being Trillo. Whereas the unit values bid in the contract and the extended totals based upon the engineer's estimates of the work to be performed in the Village of Irvington. The value of the work is $292,315, with the balance of the contract value for a portion to the village. Villages of Ardsley, Elmsford, Hastings, Sleepy Hollow, and Tarrytown collectively summing to $1,485,783. And whereas in accordance with the contract, each partner municipality or other municipalities that may piggyback on this bid separately authorize the contract and be responsible for payment of services performed within their respective municipality directed to the contractor. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees of the Village of Irvington hereby awards the contract for the work to be performed for 2025 milling and resurfacing on various streets in the Village of Irvington. The Trillo Contracting, Inc., in accordance with their unit prices contained in their bid of April 16, 2025, for the work to be performed, in the Village of Irvington and the 5 other villages, authorize the village administrator to execute said contract. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
There were no outliers in this one. I enjoy the outliers. It was crazy and there was nothing for my enjoyment in this.
Sorry.
Sorry to disappoint.
All right, presentation of 2024 MS4 annual report. Larry, I think perhaps this one's in your.
It is, yeah. So this annual report, I know I've done this presentation or something similar to it in the past. This is a report that we file with the New York State DEC. As a result of the United States Clean Water Act, entities like the Village of Irvington that operate a stormwater collection system must develop and implement a stormwater management program. We did this 20 plus years ago and we continue to follow it and update it. One of the requirements of the stormwater management plan is to prepare and file an annual report. The annual report is what's shown on the agenda, attached to the agenda. I will summarize it briefly for you, as briefly as I can, and of course, if you have any questions, feel free. Aside from the basic operator information that's up front, the annual report is divided into 6 sections, or what they refer to as minimum control measures. They're easier to call them sections, but they're minimum control measures. I'll just summarize what each of those control measures are, so that you understand them as you look at it. Minimum control measure number 1 is related to public education and outreach. In this section, we outline the education topics that we've put out to the public, and we identify the groups that we've reached, whether it's village residents or contractors, a list of different groups. Examples might include household hazardous waste disposal information, information about illicit discharges, how to handle pet waste, how to handle recycling. During the course of our outreach, we reached residents, businesses, contractors. We used our mailing list of 1,500 plus subscribers and our 2,000 plus social media followers on Facebook, Instagram, or X, I should say, along with direct contact that happens through the building department. In minimum control measure 2, it talks about public involvement and participation. This is where we post information about our stormwater management plan. We encourage the public to call with any stormwater issues they may have, and they certainly do. Even this presentation is going to be documented in this report and as part of our public outreach. This annual report that you see in front of you was posted on the agenda. It's attached to the agenda for this public meeting. So all of that is considered public participation and outreach. Minimum control measure 3 is illicit discharge detection and elimination. For that section, at the location of each outflow that empties into a stream or water body, that's an outflow of stormwater. Each of the public locations is inspected during dry conditions to determine if there's some sort of non-natural or illicit discharge. During the past year, fortunately, we did not have any illicit discharges. If we had, we would have responded to them immediately and documented what the source was and stopped it, of course, and cleaned it up if needed. Minimum control measures 4 and 5 can be talked about together. They are related to construction site, stormwater management, and also post-construction stormwater control. For construction sites, we require a stormwater permit when the area of disturbance is greater than 1 acre. The permit triggers inspections by the building department, and during the past year, we had 1 such active permit. For post-construction controls, that involves the monitoring of storm control infrastructure, so detention basins and things like that. For that infrastructure, our building department would make sure that the basin is maintained and inspected annually. And we have an inventory of 6 such basins or pieces of infrastructure around the village. And for minimum control measure 6, that covers the stormwater management specifically for municipal operations. So this is where we document how we handle village-owned stormwater infrastructure. We have to document how many times we sweep our parking lots that we own, how often we sweep our streets and clean out our catch basins. So for example, over the course of a year, we sweep 200 acres of parking lots, and we sweep 880 miles of streets, and we clean out at least 672 catch basins, and probably many more than that. We do them multiple times. We're required to do them at least once per year. So, and that's a summary of what this annual report is. The report is not really in the most user-friendly format. I think it's actually changed since last year, and I don't know that it's gotten any better. But it has all the same basic information that it's had in the past. It's just a different platform. So,
Anybody have questions? All
I
right.
think you read that faster, I think, than in the past when we've gotten longer presentations.
Yeah, well, just be happy we don't bring an engineer to give that report. which has happened in the past.
I know, that's what I mean, those are much longer. So thank you.
Next up is approval of contract to conduct a survey on building permitting process. And this is in connection with the streamlining committee. It's just additional data that can be obtained through a survey that will help their review of the building permitting process. Anybody have questions about this? And it's sort of our standard consulting agreement with the original proposal attached. It's the same person, Kathy Kaufman, who did the police survey, I believe. And the resolution, my motion is resolved to approve contract with Kathy A. Kaufman, PhD, in the amount of $5,000, professional services to conduct a survey on the building permitting process and authorize the village administrator to execute said agreement. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up is for those coming that are extending existing contracts that had within them provisions to extend. So this is approval of extending contract for auto parts, number 2024-06. The resolution is be it resolved that the village administrator is authorized to extend the contracts for auto parts with each of the suppliers in the terms outlined below for an additional year, June 1, 2025 to May 31, 2026, for the unit prices specified in their bids submitted on April 24, 2024. And it lists Red's Garage with a 5% discount, Advanced Stores, Co-Inc., discount off list price of 35 to 65%, Elliott Auto Supply, various discounts, Parts Authority LLC, list price less 50%. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approval of extending contract number 2024-07, parts numbers 1, 2, and 3 for cleaning services. And these cover the Village Hall, Library and Theater, the Rec Center, and Senior Center. The resolution is be it resolved that the village administrator is authorized to extend the contracts of cleaning services with Fullerton Services Industries for an additional year, that's June 1, 2025 to May 31, 2026. The unit prices specified in the bid submitted on April 24, 2024. First is the contracts 1 and 2, Village Hall, Library and Theater, $60,196. Again, it's for services, industries. Contract 3 is Recreation Center and Senior Center. Again, Fullerton Service Industries for $22,140.
Quick question, like, did you, the theater and the library, did you ask them if they're happy with the services that they've been giving and everything?
We've had ongoing dialogue
Okay.
with Greg especially.
I assume so, I just wanted to
Yeah,
check. to
yeah,
make sure.
no, if there's any problems, they've been worked out as far as,
Okay, and Mary, and also Mary, Mary Ann also, or no? Oh, I'm sorry, Rosemary,
Yeah, we hear from her all the time.
Okay.
So, yeah.
because they also have their own issues with construction and everything and all that's going wrong. All right, okay.
Yep.
Just checking, just doing due diligence.
It's okay, I should have let you do it beforehand, sorry. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I I got the right answer, I should
I know.
second it, right?
I was waiting.
Approval
Gonna do it.
of extending contract for miscellaneous hardware and supplies, number 24-08. My motion is be it resolved that the village administrator is authorized to extend the contracts for miscellaneous hardware and supplies with each of the suppliers in the terms outlined below for an additional year, June 1, 2025 to May 31, 2026, with unit prices specified in their bid submitted on April 24, 2024. Irvington Hardware lists, I guess, 10% discount for individual purchases, 20% for bulk quantities, special pricing for pallet form items, and Regis Hardware, 20% off sundries, 30% off gallon paint, and power tools are net. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approval of extended contract for tree removal, pruning, and stump grinding, number 2024-09. Any questions on this one before I run through it? If not, I make the following motion. Be it resolved that the village administrator is authorized to extend the contract for tree removal, tree pruning, and stump grinding on the terms outlined below for an additional year, June 1, 2025 to May 31, 2026. The unit price is specified in the bid submitted on April 24, 2024. And the company is Ramos and V, or is that 5? Ramos and V Tree Services, Inc. Annual cost of one unit non-emergency basis, $60,000. Annual cost for emergency basis, $12,000. Annual cost of stump grinders, $12,000. Total cost, $84,000. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Approval of agreement 2025-14 for landscape maintenance at the O'Hara Nature Center. My motion is resolved to approve an agreement number 2025-14 with Stromhorn LLC, providing landscape maintenance at the O'Hara Nature Center to authorize the village administrator to execute said agreement. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay. Number 17 is approval of the farmer's market manager contract. And I think you probably all saw the proceeds that we get exceed the expenses of this annual fee. So there are no questions. My motion is resolved to authorize the village administrator to execute an agreement with Pascal Ladroulet to manage the farmer's market for the village of Irvington for an annual fee of $50,000 from June 1, 2025 to May 31, 2026. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the sustainability director contract. We're gonna,
You want to defer that?
yeah, we,
Discuss or?
yeah, we can, is this the, at the revised rate, or this is?
No, that's.
So, yeah, why don't we defer it, as long as it's not gonna interfere with what she has to do, and we'll do it before June 1.
It starts June 1. so-
Okay, fine, so we'll address the email request, and then we'll deal with this later, okay? And modification of a parking space on South Dutcher. So we were, let's see what you got. Yes, the resolution, okay. So we were asked by residents of 14 South Dutcher to approve the modification of a parking space that is in front of 14 South Dutcher so that they could change their driveway, or actually build a driveway that will at least partially join with a neighbor's driveway. What we do here will still be subject to planning board approval and obviously the neighbor granting an easement. But we will be, I think, knocking 3 feet off of a parking space. So it'll go from 24 to 21 feet. And as I was told, the only person who won't be able to park there is me. My car is too long. So
You can't really park in some other spots.
that's also, that is also
Spots.
true. That is true, which is fine. So if there are no other questions.
I think it's important to note that where the net parking gain would be positive
Oh.
because they're creating 2 spaces.
Forgive me. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. That is very important to note. That's correct. We did ask them, what the net impact will be. And I think they probably only have 1 car at the moment, but they will make spaces for 2 cars to take off the street. So more than make up for, 3 feet, because it'll still be a usable parking spot. Okay, and to the extent neighbors, and I think I've talked to at least one of them, but if there are neighbors who have objections, they will be able to express them when the planning board considers this proposal. So the motion is, whereas Jacqueline Dye and Tanner White, residing at 14 South Dutcher, have requested the reduction of length of an existing on-street parking space of 3 feet adjacent to their property in order to facilitate the construction of 2 off-street parking spaces on the property. And whereas the Board of Trustees has carefully studied the parking situation in the immediate area and determined that the requested parking space modification is outweighed by the advantage of eliminating 2 cars from parking on the public street. Now therefore be it resolved to approve the reduction of length of an existing on-street parking space of up to 3 feet adjacent to 14 South Dutcher, provided the 2 off-street parking spaces are constructed as proposed and subject to site development plan approval by the planning board. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Reports of board standing committees and officers. First, Ken?
Update on the street lighting committee, which already voted on a survey, which I think is exciting stuff. I think an important one for the committee to have that information. So we had the meeting last Thursday, last day of April. We reviewed the permitting process. It was run by a PACE consultant team. We used a complex scenario of land use to try to like explore all the different sort of factors, committees that are involved, to bring on board all of the members of the committee who are at different levels of sort of understanding the process. The whole point was to sort of build consensus, and so we could all sort of be able to make recommendations by the end of the process. In attendance were representatives of most stakeholders, community, board of trustees, members of the planning board, the zoning board of appeals, the ARB, even some tree commission or architects and other folks just who've had work on it. And we documented a lot of the issues that were raised during the session. I think I just had some other issues that we should really raise any concerns about like the addressing area disability issues, but I think and that should be part of that process. But I do want to bring up some of the issues and ideas that were raised, and people started sort of informally voting on each of them to sort of build that consensus and where to focus our energy. So some of it was around website information for residents, sort of more education, a need for tech experts on all the applications. Is that really necessary? Like landscape architects and engineers for even small projects. Direct appeal to the zoning board of appeals was one idea. Many non-conforming uses and needs for variances, especially downtown. Most properties in the village need a variance, with 98% of them. Unclear fees for full projects, approval, need for site plans, majority of applications. There are many more, but those are some of the primary ones that were brought up. One last one I should bring up is also coming up with the thresholds and tiers for when a site plan would be necessary. I think right now it's very low threshold, so I think really exploring that and trying to come up with maybe a better criteria for when we need that. It costs a lot of folks a lot of money and time. I had others for updates for the schools, but I'm going to pass on that since I think we had enough on that.
So first of all, welcome back, Larry, and thank you for that SWOR report. Sounds very mysterious. But to that end, DPW updates were, document the stormwater drainage and maintenance block. So public outreach. Water report, the biggest thing that I noticed was that the water's been turned on in all the parks. So if we have any more of those 80-degree days, we can enjoy sprinkler system and water. For the fire department, I met with Chief Dowd last week, and we talked about the capital budget requests that were being submitted and got details on that. And then for GBTF, just flagging again, workshop this Wednesday evening, where there's a presentation of the mutual aid planning and zombie event.
That's it? Okay. I will say one thing about the school, and that is that we got some emails about traffic around the school. And I having met with the village administrator and the chief about what could be done about it. I know that the school is working on a proposal, and the chief will review it for us, and then they'll come back to us, and when they put something out publicly, we'll put something out publicly. But it is being looked at very carefully. that much I know.
For the last Saturday, the theater had their first as if since before COVID, since the theater reopened. And it was just a sold out, great night. It's amazing to have these films that had been at major festivals around the world playing right here in our theater. It was just one of those great nights where I think, you know, when you're in the theater, you realize it's such a community and we're so lucky to have it. I know a lot of people on the board.
Extraordinary. I was really impressed by the quality of the films. I've been recommending it to everyone. No, really. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, and it's just great that it's like, you know, this used to be, and then for so many years it was gone, and I'm glad we're able to recapture it. We had 3 of the filmmakers there for the Q&A, which was fascinating, all different types of films and different types of things. I didn't go to the party afterwards. I don't know if anyone else did, but we were all, the whole board is.
I went to sleep.
We all went to sleep, but so I can't speak to that, but it was just a great event, so I want to thank everyone for coming and you know, and just, you know, there's so much great stuff that goes on in the theater, so don't, you know, make sure you check and actually so many of our organizations, you know, and all the pieces, the library, the Parks and Rec, everyone has such great programs and stuff. So people should make sure you're signed up for all the emails so you know what's going on from all these different.
Okay, so I just wanted to remind people that Rocktoberfest is September 27th, and that the committee is hard at work. They secured a high-level sponsorship with Sunnyside Federal, $5,000, which is a pretty big coup there. John, I heard you were the first person to suggest that, so good thinking on your part. And they're pretty far underway. They have most of their food vendors. They're working on the music, and they are also working with GBTF and the Arts and Culture Committee. So there's a lot of collaboration. So that's really good. The Arts and Culture Committee, the Bulldogs are coming back June 8th. There's an arts and food festival on Main Street. And so we're working with businesses to have, you know, just what they did last year, selling things, samples. Mitch's band, The Scam, will be playing in front of Village Hall. There will be like face painting and games. And we have 23 Bulldogs this year. And they are, the concepts are pretty great. So it'll be interesting to see them all. So definitely June 8th is a day to kind of keep in mind. Juneteenth committee is planning Juneteenth. There's going to be a film in conjunction with the library. They're doing a joint event, which is a film that was sponsored by Commemorate, which deals the film it's called The Hidden Cost of Progress, and it's about urban renewal in Ossining. It's about a 30-minute documentary. It's going to be at the library Thursday, June 5th at 6:30. And then there's a second Juneteenth event that's going to be in conjunction with the theater, and it's I'm not going to say much about it because it's still in the works, but that's more to come there. And then from Parks and Rec, let me just get. So registration is open for summer day camp for students pre-K through 8th grade. The deadline is June 18th. There are still limited spots for Teenscape Session 2, summer travel camp for current 7th and 8th grade students, and the deadline is May 9th. And the May Senior Center calendar has been posted on the website, village website. Paper copies are available at the rec department and also the Senior Center at 29 Bridge Street. And spring cleanup at Halsey Pond, Saturday, May 10th, 10 to 2. And they're going to meet at the Northeast Corner. That is it for me.
Administrator's report.
So I'm pleased to announce that we were awarded the Community Reforestation Grant for the Irvington Woods. That's a DEC grant, very large grant for about $382,000. It was announced by Governor Hochul on of all days, Arbor Day. Hastings also received a sizable award, and there was one other municipality in Westchester that received awards. So we're pretty fortunate for that grant. The other announcement is that there will be community meeting, most likely on the date of your work session in June, related to the Downingwood culvert replacement. There's a public education or public outreach component to that grant, and our consultants who are preparing the plans and specifications will run a meeting targeted just for that culvert replacement. So any interested parties will be invited, and any other residents that want to hear about it, invited. And that's it.
Okay. Village Clerk Treasurer's report.
Just a quick report that at next Wednesday's work session, we'll begin to talk about the capital budget.
Village Attorney. Okay, any further public comment? No. Going once, going twice, nobody's online, I'm assuming. Okay, then I'm gonna make a motion to go to executive session regarding personnel matter.
Again.
All in favor?